last, a flicker of astonishment surfaced upon the young man's face. He turned his gaze squarely upon Ling Han, his expression solemn as he said, "You actually managed to block my strike? Not bad, not bad. Who are you? You are qualified enough for me to know your name." "Are you retarded?" Ling Han asked icily. Did this fellow truly believe himself sovereign of heaven and earth, that all under the skies revolved about him? "How dare you?" The young man flew into instant fury and struck out with another palm. In that moment, 23 flaming tigers materialized, roaring as they lunged toward Ling Han. Each fiery tiger was ferocious beyond compare, possessing strength sufficient to subdue any ordinary cultivator at the 9th layer of the flower blossoming tier. The simultaneous descent of these 23 blazing beasts was a sight of utter terror. 23 flashes of chi. Ling Han could not help but be startled. He himself had only comprehended 19 flashes of sword chi, and in terms of fist chi, his progress lagged even further behind. Yet he merely let out a cold snort, raised his fists, and struck forward, unleashing 17 silvery dragon phantoms. Peng, 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 peng. The dragon phantoms collided headlong with the flaming tigers, tearing and rending at one another. It was evident that the fiery tigers held the advantage. Merely 13 of them were enough to contend against the 17 dragon phantoms, while the remaining 10 continued their blazing assault toward Ling Han. With ghostly immortal steps, Ling Han shifted like a wisp of smoke and narrowly evaded the attack. A fierce battle intent burned within his eyes as he roared, "Take another punch from me!" He hurled forth another strike, but this time he wove into it an ancient bone pattern. Instantly, his martial intent blazed with unfathomable brilliance. The power of the 17 dragon phantoms surged several-fold as they roared toward the young man in counterattack. Interesting. The young man waved his palm once more, and again 23 fiery tigers sprang forth. Peng! This time, the 17 dragon phantoms actually halted 17 of the flaming tigers in mid-charge, yet 6 blazing beasts still broke through and lunged at Ling Han. There was no helping it. In terms of chi comprehension, this young man surpassed Ling Han, or at least that was presently so. Coupled with his superior cultivation level, it was only natural that he held the upper hand in this exchange. This was a fact Ling Han could not alter. Most crucially, he too was a genius. Moreover, a peerless genius. Ling Han let out a long howl and, with ghostly immortal steps, flashed directly before his opponent, intent on engaging in close combat. He had already forged the body of iron sheet. Furthermore, his 9 dragons tyrant body art had advanced into the flower blossom tier. In close quarters combat, within the same tier, he was unquestionably supreme. Unless his opponent was likewise a monstrous being who had cultivated some supreme body art, granting not only terrifying physical might, but an incomparably resilient physique. With the enigmatic footwork of ghostly immortal steps, Ling Han slipped before the young man and launched a punch straight at him. "Where did you get the confidence to fight me at close range?" The young man sneered and parried with a palm strike of overwhelming speed. Ordinarily, most cultivators avoided close combat. What they cultivated was origin power, and thus most lacked formidable physical bodies. In an instant, a cultivator could unleash 10 or even 20 flashes of origin power, but without sufficient bodily strength, could he truly deliver 10 or 20 physical strikes in that same instant? So long as sufficient distance was maintained, one needed only flip a hand or sweep a sword to wound an enemy from afar, between an opponent fleeing with a leap and oneself merely raising a hand, which was swifter. Yet in close combat, even raising a hand or turning a palm became an extravagant luxury. There was a saying, "The whip too short cannot reach," but if the whip were too long, it would be cumbersome and inflexible. However, this young man was adept at close quarters combat. His parrying palm was honed and precise, fully revealing his mastery. This signified that his physique was unquestionably formidable. Ling Han's battle intent soared skyward. With a thunderous shout, he engaged the young man in fierce combat. Peng, peng, peng. They exchanged rapid, close-range blows. There were few grandiose displays, only the collision of martial intents and the radiance of intricate patterns that shattered and reformed in endless succession. In this struggle, the two stood evenly matched. Ling Han's physique was undeniably stronger, tempered by the indestructible Heaven Scroll. Moreover, his cultivation of the Nine Dragons Tyrant body art rendered his physical strength equally terrifying. The young man's physique and bodily strength were inferior to Ling Han's. However, his superior origin power compensated for this deficiency. "I have truly underestimated you," the young man declared coldly. Killing intent flashed within his eyes, and with a resounding pang, a dreadful aura erupted from his body, transforming into 1,000 flaming blades that shot toward Ling Han. Even with his body of iron sheet, his physique as sturdy as precious metal of the same level, Ling Han felt alarm. He could not help but retreat, widening the distance between them. "Ha! Within 10 moves, I shall make you kneel before me." The young man laughed loudly, striking out palm after palm in swift succession like an ultimate being capable of splitting heaven and sundering earth. His battle prowess soared to an entirely new height. Unless one's physical strength surpassed one's origin power, the wise course was naturally to maintain distance. Yet in this world, there were virtually none whose physical strength exceeded their origin power. The young man was shrewd. Arrogant, perhaps, but no fool. Though he had earlier shown disdain toward Ling Han, he had no intention of once more engaging in close combat, which was not his strongest domain. For those cultivating origin power, distance was king, allowing them to unleash martial techniques without restraint. Ling Han was suppressed, yet that did not mean he lacked the means to reverse the tide. His greatest expertise lay in sword arts, but he did not draw the demon birth sword, nor did he employ the mysterious 3,000. These were his trump cards. Moreover, this was the middle state. Who could say whether someone might recognize the mysterious 3,000 and summon forth the old monsters of the Heaven Sword Sect? "Stop!" A cold snort resounded, and a displeased voice drifted from the palace above. "What do you two take this place for, that you may act as you please here?" The rebuke was stern and imbued with authority. Ling Han and the young man ceased their movements simultaneously. Pride depended upon circumstance. Otherwise, it was not pride, but folly. The one who had rebuked them was at least of the deity transformation tier. No matter how monstrous Ling Han and the young man were, before such an existence, they would only be suppressed. To defy would invite a beating, and neither wished to be thrashed. The young man remained haughty. Casting a sidelong glance at Ling Han, he dismissed him and instead turned to Helian Shunshui. "I am Xuanyuan Ziguang. I fancy you. Become my woman." So he was Xuanyuan Ziguang. No wonder his strength was so formidable. Helian Shunshui hastily hid behind Ling Han, then peeked out her lovely face and stuck out her tongue at Xuanyuan Ziguang. She found him incomprehensible and detestable. Ling Han, meanwhile, cast Xuanyuan Ziguang a look of pity. This fellow thought far too highly of himself, yet had no idea that this charming woman was actually of the heaven tier. Though she currently suffered amnesia, one day her memories would return, and then he would surely be in grave peril. Seeing this, Xuanyuan Ziguang's gaze toward Ling Han filled with thick, killing intent. The woman he fancied was so intimate with another man? This he could not tolerate. He must kill that man, or the knot in his heart would never loosen. "Once you leave this place, you will be a dead man," he said, pointing at Ling Han. Ling Han smiled faintly and replied, "Very well. Then you may as well spend the rest of your life waiting here for me." Xuanyuan Ziguang was left momentarily speechless. He had not anticipated such shamelessness. He snorted coldly and said, "I will wait for you." Translator, Dark Angel. Editor, Kurisu. Xuanyuan Ziguang turned to depart, his sleeves fluttering as he strode away. Yet before he had gone more than a few steps, he suddenly heard Ling Han murmur in a low voice, "Idiot." His footsteps halted at once. He slowly turned back around, eyes like cold ice, and barked, "What did you just say?" "Oh, I said you're an idiot. I truly didn't expect that you would know yourself so well and realize I was calling out to you." Ling Han replied with a relaxed smile. In an instant, Xuan Ziguang's fury erupted. Killing intent surged skyward, billowing above his head like blazing flames. Phantoms of true dragons and true phoenixes manifested alongside the Byakko and the Genbu, revealing the terrifying depth of power this youth possessed. He truly was formidable. Perhaps he was not inferior even to the Sword Emperor and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden of years past. "Once you leave this place, I will most certainly take your head," he declared coldly, every word brimming with iron resolve. Then you'll just have to wait patiently, idiot. Wait until my mood improves. Only then will I take your life. Ling Han said indolently, as someone who had once stood at the pinnacle of heaven-tier cultivation in his previous life. No matter how dazzling this generation of youths might be, it was still impossible for him to regard them as true rivals. In his eyes, the ones he needed to surpass were figures like the Sword Emperor, the Setting Sun Saber Emperor, and others who had already stepped into the immortal realm, assuming they truly had entered it. Xuanyuan Guang did not continue exchanging words with Ling Han, for it would have been nothing more than a waste of time. He snorted coldly, flicked his sleeves, and departed. This time, Ling Han did not mutter another word. Instead, he pondered whether he should pluck something like a strand of Xuanyuan Guang's hair and toss it into the vial of curses to hex him. However, cultivators who had reached the flower blossom tier had already shed their mortal shells. Not a single strand of hair would fall from their bodies. They could even freely control the growth of their fingernails. Only demonic beasts continued to grow uncontrollably, for their path was one of bodily cultivation. Thus, obtaining physical tissue from a flower blossom tier cultivator was no easy matter. Forget it. Xuanyuan Guang was merely at the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier. Once Ling Han raised his cultivation by a few more levels, killing him would not be difficult at all. Let's go and arrange your lodgings, Ying Hong said, a faint smile playing on her lips. She was clearly delighted to see conflict arise between Ling Han and Xuanyuan Guang. That way, the likelihood of Ling Han putting his full effort into assisting her would be even greater. Is it really appropriate for you to take such pleasure in another's misfortune? Ling Han teased. I want to. What can you do about it? Ying Hong thrust out her chest defiantly. How vulgar! Ling Han said with disdain. The 5 of them entered the Spirit Treasures Pavilion after Ying Hong presented proof of her identity. They were then escorted into the vast complex of buildings behind the Great Hall. However, the North region possessed the weakest martial foundation, and thus its branch of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion naturally held the lowest status here. In this place, Ying Hong's presence was clearly diminished. Humph, just wait until I take first place in this tournament. We'll see what else you all will dare say then, she fumed. Big Brother Han, that Xuanyuan Guang truly possesses extraordinary strength. You absolutely must not be careless, Zhu Xuan'er said softly to Ling Han. Ling Han nodded and replied, Rest assured, I fear no one, but I will never underestimate any genius either. Truthfully speaking, his current strength is indeed above mine, but if he wishes to kill me, that is still nothing more than a fantasy. He was utterly confident in this. He still had far too many trump cards hidden up his sleeve. Oh right, let me ask you something, Ling Han said to Ying Hong. Have you ever heard of the Boundless Mountain? What mountain? Ying Hong asked blankly. Boundless Mountain. Tsk, I only lived in the Middle State for a few years. Besides, the Middle State is vast beyond measure. How could I possibly know where some boundless mountain is? Just wait. I'll find someone and ask around for you. Ying Hong bustled off, then after a while hurried back again and said, You damn brat, are you toying with me? I've asked a great many people, yet not a single one has heard of such a mountain. Ling Han frowned. After 10,000 years, changes in place names were only natural, but the problem was that the Middle State was simply too enormous. How could he possibly check every mountain one by one? Hey, I'm talking to you. Are you messing with me? Ying Hong demanded fiercely. Mind how you speak, otherwise no one would dare marry you, Ling Han warned. Pay, I've got huge breasts. If I wanted to marry, it'd be easy as eating and drinking. Ying Hong snorted. You all just stay here for now. Oh, and it'd be best to avoid clashing with Xuanyuan Guang if possible. The South region actually hired such a monster. Looks like we won't be scoring many points in the martial competition. Ling Han laughed and said, I have a way. What way? Think of a way to get your hands on Xuanyuan Guang's hair, and I'll craft a voodoo doll to curse him. I guarantee his strength will plummet, and he'll be no match for Xuan'er, Ling Han suggested with a grin. Tsk, Ying Hong rolled her eyes. This brat was playing with her again. I'm leaving. You all rest for a bit, but don't overdo it. There's only a month left until the tournament, so don't ruin your bodies. Get lost. After Yinghong left, the three girls found their respective rooms and set down their belongings, though they hardly had much luggage. After all, they possessed the Black Tower, and everyone also had a spatial ring. Meanwhile, Linghan sat down and continued pondering the matter of the Boundless Mountain. In his previous life, he had heard of the Boundless Mountain, yet had never personally been there. He only knew that such a place existed somewhere in the Middle State. Since that was the case, he could first determine its approximate location before gradually searching for its exact whereabouts. In the past, this would have been like fishing a needle from the sea. Now it was more like fishing a needle from a lake. Though still an exceedingly slow process, it was far better than wandering aimlessly across the entire Middle State. The guest rooms of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion were of exceptional quality. Each room contained a map of the Middle State, but it was not particularly detailed. Only some of the larger regions were marked. Countless smaller cities and mountain ranges were left unnamed. Linghan racked his memory and compared carefully, then finally slammed his finger down upon the map. Here, Flying Blossom County. The Middle State was simply too vast, so it was divided into 36 counties. Flying Blossom County was one of them. Yet even after shrinking the area to 1/36 of its original size, Flying Blossom County was still incomparably enormous, larger even than the entire North region. If he wanted to locate a specific mountain within such a place, the difficulty was immense. Hopefully, there aren't too many mountains in Flying Blossom County, Linghan thought. Such a coarse map was useless for close comparison. Thus, Linghan summoned a servant and instructed him to purchase a map of Flying Blossom County. It was said that anything could be bought within the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. As such, without even stepping outside, one could practically obtain whatever they desired, so long as they had the money. Before long, the servant returned and reported that there were 3 grades of maps. Ordinary maps could be bought with plain currency. Mid-grade maps required single-star origin crystals, while high-grade maps had to be purchased with double-star origin crystals, the price of the highest grade reaching a staggering 10 origin crystals. Linghan inwardly mocked the ruthlessness of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. Yet he still handed over 10 double-star origin crystals and instructed the servant to purchase a high-grade map and return swiftly. After some time passed, the map was delivered into Linghan's hands. Since a single map could be sold for 10 double-star origin crystals, it naturally possessed extraordinary qualities. First, the material itself was precious. It was drawn upon the shell of a clear dragon-scaled tortoise, using a completely intact shell. The clear dragon-scaled tortoise was not a high-grade demonic beast, but its shell possessed a unique ability. It could expand or shrink at will. At its maximum, it could stretch to 100 meters. At its smallest, it could shrink to the size of a palm. Because of this trait, clear dragon-scaled tortoises had been hunted relentlessly, and by now, pitifully few of them remained. Linghan stepped into the courtyard. With a flick of his hand, the tiny tortoise shell instantly expanded, revealing mountains, plains, and rivers in exquisite detail before his eyes.